There's a motorcycle that outsells Harley-Davidson and BMW combined by about 10 to 1. It costs less than $1,000, it makes single-digit horsepower, and most people in America or Europe have never even heard its name. Last year, in India alone, this one bike sold somewhere around 3.7 million units. Harley-Davidson, the most famous name in the entire business, sold about 151,000 worldwide in 2024. BMW had the best year in its history and delivered around 210,000. Put those two legends together and you get roughly 361,000 bikes. This one plain little commuter outsold both of them, combined, by nearly 10 to 1. Yeah, you read that right. 10 to 1. Now let me be straight with you for a second, because I hate when these videos play fast and loose. Those numbers aren't all measured in exactly the same way. The Splendor figure is mostly bikes shipped out to dealers in India, while the Harley and BMW numbers are worldwide sales. So it's a rough comparison, not a laboratory experiment. But a 10 to 1 gap is a 10 to 1 gap. Even if you're generous with the rounding, even if you shave it down every way you can, it doesn't get close. Not even in the same postal code is close. That bike is called the Hero Splendor. It's built in India, it makes about as much power as a decent lawnmower, and it might be the most quietly successful machine of the last 50 years. It's India's best-selling motorcycle by a country mile, and by yearly sales of a single model, it's very possibly the best-selling motorcycle on the entire planet. Nobody keeps a perfect global scoreboard, so you can't crown it with total certainty. But whatever the exact ranking is, it's playing in a league the famous names never even see. So where did this thing come from? Why is it everywhere across India and much of the developing world, while the Western world has barely heard the name? And how does a company that started out bending bicycle frames in a small Indian town end up burying Harley and BMW in sales? The story starts, weirdly enough, in post-war Japan. But first, a fair question you might already be shouting at your screen. What about Honda? Because Honda is the actual giant here. Honda builds close to 20 million motorcycles every single year, roughly 40% of the entire global market. Nobody outsells Honda overall, and honestly nobody is close. So how can Hero, the company behind the Splendor, also be called the world's largest two-wheeler maker? Here's the answer, and it's a fun one. Both claims are true, they're just measuring different things. Honda is the biggest motorcycle producer on Earth when you count every model across every market and every subsidiary it owns. Hero, on the other hand, has long been the world's largest two-wheeler company, measured as a single brand by unit sales, a title it first grabbed back in 2001 and has held on to for over 2 decades. So Honda is the bigger company overall, while Hero wears the crown as the single largest two-wheeler brand. And the two of them, believe it or not, used to be partners. Because here's the twist that makes this whole story so good. Honda didn't just lose this race. Honda helped build the bike that's winning it. To understand how, we've got to go back to 1958, and to a little machine that changed how the world gets around more than almost any vehicle ever made. In the years after the Second World War, Japan was rebuilding, and getting around was hard and expensive. An obsessive engineer named Soichiro Honda had a partner running the business side, a sharp strategist named Takeo Fujisawa. Together they had a simple, almost stubborn idea. Build a motorcycle so cheap, so reliable, and so easy to ride that anyone could own one. Not enthusiasts, not daredevils, everyone. The delivery guy carrying a tray of noodles in one hand, the shopkeeper, your grandmother. What they built was the Honda Super Cub, a small step-through motorcycle with a little 4-stroke engine, a body you could ride in normal clothes, and a reputation for being almost impossible to kill. Fujisawa reportedly predicted the thing would sell 30,000 units a month. To put that in perspective, at the time every motorcycle maker in all of Japan combined was selling around 40,000 a month total. It sounded insane. He was wrong. He was wrong because he wildly underestimated it. The Super Cub didn't sell 30,000 a month and then fade. It sold and kept selling for decades in Japan, across Asia, in Africa, in the United States. By 2017, Honda announced that cumulative production of the Super Cub had crossed 100 million units, and it's kept climbing since, 100 million. That makes the Super Cub, by most reckonings, the most produced motor vehicle in the history of the world. It outproduced the Volkswagen Beetle. It outproduced the Toyota Corolla. A cheap little step-through that most car people have never given a second thought quietly beat every famous vehicle you can name. And it didn't just conquer the poorer parts of the world, it cracked America too. In the 1960s, Honda ran an ad campaign built around the line, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda," and it worked like magic. It took the motorcycle, which in the American mind meant leather jackets and troublemakers, and turned it into something a college student or a suburban parent could park in the driveway without a second thought. It didn't win on horsepower. It won because it was friendly, easy to ride, cheap to run, and almost impossible to break. Honda had figured out something the whole industry kept missing. The biggest market isn't people who love motorcycles, it's people who just need one. And that little machine matters to our story, not because its engine got copied part for part, but because of the idea behind it. Small, cheap, efficient, basically indestructible. That design philosophy, the belief that the most important vehicle isn't the fastest one, but the one an ordinary person can actually afford to keep running, is exactly what Honda would later carry to India. And a family business over there was about to take that philosophy and run further with it than anyone imagined. So let's talk about the company that actually builds the Splendor, because this part is almost too good. Hero did not start out making motorcycles. Hero started out making bicycles. The story begins with a man named Brijmohan Lal Munjal and his brothers in the city of Ludhiana in northern India. In the decades after India's independence, the Munjal family built a company called Hero Cycles, and they built it into something enormous. We're not talking about a corner bike shop. At its peak, Hero Cycles became one of the largest bicycle manufacturers on earth, turning out millions of pedal bikes a year. The family understood two things better than almost anyone alive. They understood cheap, mass-scale manufacturing, and they understood exactly what an ordinary working person needs from a machine they can barely afford. Hero Cycles didn't get huge by making fancy bicycles. It got huge by making plain, affordable, dependable ones, millions upon millions of them. On margins so thin they only worked at enormous scale. That was the whole family philosophy. Win on volume, win on reliability, win on price, and never forget who you're building for. It's the same instinct that would soon make the Splendor unstoppable. So when India's motorcycle market started to open up in the early 1980s, the Munjals saw the obvious next step. They already knew how to build affordable two-wheeled transport by the million. What they didn't have was a proven, reliable engine, and guess who did? In 1984, Hero teamed up with Honda to form a joint venture called Hero Honda. Hero brought the manufacturing muscle and its deep understanding of the Indian buyer. Honda brought the engineering, that same hard-won expertise in small, tough, economical four-stroke engines, the exact philosophy that had made the Super Cub a global phenomenon. It was a perfect marriage, Indian scale, Japanese reliability. Their first big hit landed in 1985, a bike called the CD100, and it came with a slogan that basically explains this entire video in 4 words: fill it, shut it, forget it. That was the pitch. Put fuel in, close it up, and stop thinking about it, because this thing will simply run. In a country where every rupee of fuel counts and a broken down bike can mean a lost day of income, that promise wasn't marketing fluff, it was the whole ballgame. And Indian buyers responded in enormous numbers. Then, in 1994, came the bike that would rewrite the record books, the Hero Splendor. The Splendor took everything that worked about the formula and refined it into something close to perfect for its market. A small, incredibly fuel-efficient engine built on that same Honda 4-stroke commuter know-how. Lightweight, simple mechanics. A price ordinary families could actually reach. It wasn't fast, it wasn't flashy, it didn't try to be. It just did the one job it was built for better than anything else on the road, and it did it for years without complaint. Within a few years, the Splendor wasn't just a popular motorcycle in India, it was the motorcycle, the default, the one parked outside every shop, ridden down every village road, carrying households to weddings and markets and hospitals. And this is the part engineers find almost heretical. That little engine at the heart of the Splendor has barely changed in shape for decades. In an industry obsessed with more power, more electronics, more everything, Hero mostly left it alone. Why? Because it worked. Every year they left it basically untouched was another year the factories got better at building it, another year mechanics got more familiar with it, another year the reliability got a little more bulletproof. While premium brands chased the next spec sheet, the Splendor won by refusing to fix what wasn't broken. Being boring on purpose turned out to be one of the smartest decisions Hero ever made. Real quick, before we get into why this thing became unstoppable, if you are enjoying this story, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I dig up stuff like this every week, the machines and companies quietly running the world that nobody talks about. Okay, back to it. Because in 2010, this partnership hit a plot twist. After more than 25 years together, Hero and Honda decided to end the marriage. The two sides announced the split late in 2010 and completed it through 2011 when the Munjal family bought out Honda's stake and renamed the whole company Hero MotoCorp. New name, new logo, no more Honda on the tank. A lot of people assumed that without the Honda badge, the Indian company was in real trouble. Now, to be fair, they did not cut Honda off cold. Honda kept providing technical support under a transitional deal, with Hero paying royalties for a few more years while it built up its own engineering muscle. But here is what everyone got wrong about the bigger picture. The Splendor did not stumble. Its reputation did not live in the Honda logo. It lived in the bike itself. People did not buy a Splendor for the badge. They bought it because their father rode one, and it never let him down, and now they wanted one too. Hero kept refining the Splendor, kept it cheap, kept it reliable, and it just kept selling, year after year after year. And the scale is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. In 2021, Hero announced it had produced 100 million two-wheelers in total. By September of 2025, that number had climbed past 125 million machines produced, making Hero the first Indian company ever to reach that milestone. And the Splendor has been the beating heart of that empire the whole way through. To give you a sense of that scale, Hero sells close to 6 million two-wheelers a year. That means this one company builds roughly a full year's worth of Harley-Davidsons about every 10 days. Sit with that for a second. The entire annual output of the most iconic motorcycle brand in the world is something Hero knocks out in a week and a half without breaking a sweat. So now we get to the real question, the one that actually matters. Why? Why does a plain little commuter bike outsell some of the most beloved, most advanced motorcycles ever built? And the answer is where this story stops being a fun fact and starts being genuinely fascinating, because it comes down to one idea a lot of us in the West have never had to think about. In much of North America and Northern Europe, a motorcycle is mostly a recreational thing, a hobby, a weekend thing, a midlife thing, a freedom of the open road thing. In India and across a lot of the developing world, a far bigger share of motorcycles are bought as pure everyday transportation, not a toy, the machine that runs your whole life. To really get this, you have to picture the roads. India has hundreds of millions of two-wheelers, and in a lot of the country, the motorcycle, not the car, is the default family vehicle. Cars are expensive to buy, expensive to fuel, and useless in a narrow lane jammed with traffic. A small motorcycle threads through all of it, costs a fraction as much, and fits a budget a car never could. So the two-wheeler over there isn't the poor person's compromise. For a massive share of the population, it's simply the smart, obvious choice. Start with the money that goes in. The Splendor is famous for sipping fuel. In the real world, owners commonly report somewhere between 55 and 75 kilometers on a single liter of petrol, and the official test figures land right around 70. To translate that for anyone raised on miles per gallon, we're talking roughly 130 to 175 miles per gallon. A car gets nowhere near that. A big premium motorcycle doesn't come close either. For a rider watching every rupee, that efficiency isn't a nice bonus. It's the difference between the bike paying for itself and the bike being a burden. Then there's what happens when something goes wrong, which is maybe the most underrated superpower this bike has. The Splendor is simple. It's got modern touches now, fuel injection, emissions gear, even digital displays on the fancier versions, so it's not some purely mechanical antique. But by the standards of a modern premium motorcycle stuffed with ride-by-wire throttles and traction control and a dozen sensors, it's beautifully, deliberately basic. That means when it does need a repair, you usually don't need a dealership or a diagnostic computer or a 2-week wait for an exotic part. There's an absolutely enormous network of mechanics and cheap spare parts for this bike across India, because there are tens of millions of them on the road, and every decent mechanic has fixed 100. Compare that to a bike where one failed sensor means a tow to the nearest authorized center, and you start to understand the appeal. A Splendor is a machine you can actually afford to keep alive, and it holds its value in a way that would surprise a lot of Western riders. Because the Splendor is so trusted and so easy to maintain, a used one stays in demand for years. When almost everyone wants the same dependable bike, the one you bought doesn't turn into worthless scrap the second you ride it off the lot. It stays worth something. So when you actually add it all up, the low sticker price, the tiny fuel bills, the cheap repairs, and the strong resale value, the true cost of owning a Splendor across its whole life is almost absurdly low. For a buyer, counting every rupee, nothing else really competes. Now stack financing on top. In India, two-wheeler loans are common, and lenders will often finance most of the price of a bike, though how much depends on your income and your credit. Even so, for a machine that costs around 79,000 rupees, roughly $900 back in 2025, the monthly payments can come down to just a couple thousand rupees. That opens the door for millions of people on modest, sometimes informal incomes to own a motorcycle at all. And a huge chunk of that demand comes from rural India, where more than half of the country's two-wheeler sales happen, and where cheap, efficient commuters like the Splendor absolutely dominate. And this is the part that reframes everything. For an enormous number of those buyers, the bike isn't transport, it's income. It's how a worker gets to a job site an hour away that they otherwise couldn't reach. It's how a small trader hauls goods to the market. It's how a family runs a tiny delivery business, or gets a sick relative to a hospital, or covers the distance between a rural village and the nearest paying work. When your motorcycle is the tool that earns your living, you don't care about chrome. You don't care about the badge or the exhaust note or whether it looks cool parked outside a cafe. You care about one thing. Will it start tomorrow morning, cheaply and reliably, every single day? And for 30 years, the Splendor's answer has been yes. That's why it wins. Not because it's the best motorcycle by any spec an enthusiast cares about. It wins because it's the best answer to the actual question hundreds of millions of people are asking. Which brings us back, finally, to the legends. To Harley and to BMW and to what they're really selling. Because once you see this clearly, the whole comparison flips upside down. Here's the honest truth I danced around at the start. The Splendor isn't really Harley's competitor or BMW's. Nobody is cross-shopping a $900 commuter against a road glide. These bikes barely live on the same planet, and that's exactly the point. Harley-Davidson sells transportation wrapped in identity, heritage, and pure feeling. It sells the rumble, the leather, the weekend, the sense of being a certain kind of person on a certain kind of road. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a fantastic thing to sell. But it's a luxury, and luxury sells in smaller numbers. In the United States, plenty of big touring motorcycles start above $25,000. That's not a tool for getting to work. That's the purchase you make once getting to work is already handled by the car in your driveway. BMW Motorrad is the same idea in different clothes. Beautifully engineered premium adventure and touring machines sold to enthusiasts who love the craft and can afford the entry fee. The kind of bike people buy dreaming of crossing continents, even if a lot of that dreaming happens on the weekend loop close to home. And no shade, That dream is a big part of why we love motorcycles at all. When BMW celebrated its record-breaking year, that record was about 210,000 bikes worldwide. A genuinely great year for them. The Splendor sells more than that in roughly 3 weeks. And this next part really lands the point. While the cheap workhorse keeps rolling along, the icon has been shrinking. Harley-Davidson's sales have fallen for several years running, from around 178,000 bikes in 2022, down to about 162,000 the next year, to roughly 151,000 in 2024, and down again to about 132,000 in 2025. The most aspirational motorcycle brand on Earth has been getting smaller for 4 years straight. And the plain little commuter from India just keeps selling in numbers those brands will never touch. A big part of Harley's problem is that its most loyal riders are getting older, and the company has spent years struggling to convince younger people to take their place. Harley keeps trying to win back a shrinking base of longtime fans. Meanwhile, the Splendor is being bought by people entering the motorcycle market for the very first time. Young workers and new riders picking up the first vehicle their family has ever owned. So while Harley leans hard on its history, the Splendor is riding a wave of brand new customers who never cared about any of that in the first place. So which one is really winning? It depends entirely on what you think winning means. And that's the thing this whole story has been sneaking up on. We tend to assume the best motorcycle is the loudest one, the fastest one, the most expensive one, the one that turns heads outside a coffee shop. That's what best looks like on a poster. But by the plainest measure there is, raw machines in real hands doing real work, none of the famous names are even in the conversation. The throne doesn't belong to the bike with the best commercial. It belongs to a sub-$1,000 workhorse with a lawnmower's worth of horsepower, built on the same humble idea that once produced the most made vehicle in history. There's something almost poetic in it. Two unglamorous machines, the Honda Super Cub and the Hero Splendor, built by people who cared more about the shopkeeper and the delivery rider than the enthusiast, quietly outselling nearly every glamorous motorcycle ever made just by being useful. They earn it every single morning when a person who can't afford to be let down turns the key and the engine catches on the first try. Now, I don't want to leave you with the wrong idea. This isn't a story about Harley or BMW failing. They're doing fine. They're just selling something completely different. They sell engineering and escape and identity, and they sell it beautifully. The Splendor sells affordable access to work, to school, to markets, to a livelihood. Those are different products for different lives, and the world has room for both. But the Splendor will probably never get a movie made about it. Hero isn't selling the kind of thing people tattoo on their arms. And that, in a strange way, is exactly why it won. It was never trying to be a legend. It was just trying to get you to work. And it turns out that's the thing the whole world actually needed. So next time you see a chrome-covered cruiser thundering down the road, remember there's a plain silver commuter halfway across the planet outselling it many times over, and it's been doing it quietly the entire time. If you want another story about the unglamorous machines secretly running the world, I've got one on your screen right now.